Hey guys, it's just Chelsea jumping in here before we get started on this awesome new series to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor making it possible, Betterment. This series is all about adapting your psychology to your money so that no matter what happens financially, you are best prepared to handle it. And as we get close to the end of the year, there is no better time to make sure that your money is working for you and not stressing you out. Luckily, Betterment makes it easy to invest and save for what you care about. Their automated technology keeps you invested in expert-built, diversified portfolios, so you can rest assured your money is where it should be. With Betterment, you can keep building wealth while enjoying the season, ready for whatever comes next. Get started, be invested, sign up in minutes. Head to betterment.com/TFD or click the link in the description box to sign up.
Hey all, it's your girl, Kara Perez, founder of Kara Explores Money, author of Money for Change, back for our third and sadly final installment in this fabulous three-part series about money and mental health. And today's video is focused on a topic that is truly near and dear to my heart. We are talking about having a money routine. Now, I am a financial educator who doesn't really like to use the word good and bad when it comes to money, because all of us come to money from different places. We have different backgrounds, different privileges, different goals, different amounts of money, and all of that plays into how we use money and what we use money for. So I don't like to say that this is a good thing to do with money or this is a bad thing to do with money, but I will say that having a regular money routine is one of the best things that you can do for yourself and your relationship to money. As I've talked about throughout this series, I grew up low income, and I was low income throughout my entire 20s. It wasn't until I was 30 years old that I earned $50,000 a year, and I've never had a full-time salaried positions with benefits like a 401k or employer-sponsored healthcare. And the thing that changed my life in the most literal and what I would consider the most important sense is sitting down and tracking my spending and making a budget. Because as Jay-Z said, "Men lie, women lie, numbers don't." When I was 25, I decided to get really serious about my money because money, frankly, was ruining my life. I had student loan debt that felt unconquerable. I really and truly felt like I would be buried with my Sallie Mae paperwork. I didn't know anything about investing. I didn't know what an HYSA was. But the one thing that I did know was that if I sat down and looked at my numbers, they would tell me something. Now, I'm not here to tell you that you can budget your way out of systemic poverty, but I am here to tell you that if you want to make any kind of change to your financial life, you have to know what you're working with first. There's not like a magical tool or a magical investment that you can just start using to change your financial life if you don't even understand what's going on in your financial life. Now, I can admit I was anxious and depressed AF when I started my financial journey. And that was in part because I was so low income and that made it hard to do things, but it was also because money felt entirely out of my control. Money felt like something that happened to me and not something that I had any say over. And I found myself kind of just like along for this bumpy ride, hoping and praying that at the end of the month, I would have enough money to pay next month's rent. Taking a more active role in my financial life not only kick-started financial change, it also helped ease some of the anxiety and depression that I was feeling. Shout out therapy for helping with the rest of that. So what is the role that a money routine can play when it comes to our finances and our psychological health? Not only has tracking your money and using a budget been proven to help you actually save more money, it also helps ease some of these difficult financial emotions that many of us feel around our finances. For me, it was anxiety and depression. For others, it might be feelings of embarrassment or shame or just some sort of collective weight that sits on you when you think about money. Many of us get caught in these cycles of self-loathing because the act of taking control of our money feels insurmountable. People who avoid tackling financial necessities often label themselves a procrastinator and assume that they are just lazy or undisciplined. That's pejorative, judgmental, and not helpful. The psychological dynamics of avoidance underlie what we tend to call procrastination. We're hardwired to deploy various kinds of avoidance maneuvers when encountering something that is anxiety-provoking or uncomfortable. The tricky thing is that in the very short run, avoidance works to reduce anxiety. Because it works, you're inclined to do it again in the same circumstances. Because we get these short-term kind of dopamine bursts or these short-term feelings of protection when we avoid something, that can lead into us establishing this ongoing long-term habit of avoiding your money. And ultimately, that's what comes to bite so many of us in the butt. Because turns out, having a budget can positively influence your life by reducing these bad feelings of anxiety and stress. Consumers who have a budget feel more in control, more confident, and more secure, whereas consumers without a budget are likely to feel not in control, worried, and stressed. There is a desire to have control over their money, but many are struggling to do so. A budget would help increase their feelings of control, confidence, and security, while at the same time reducing their anxiety. Now, of course, we live in a society, and that means that there are cultural norms that exert their influence on our thoughts and our behavior. And money is no exception to that. In fact, a common money belief is, I can't budget because I don't make enough money. Here in the United States, we live in a culture of wealth worship. Those with money are treated with more respect and more literal reverence than those without money. And we talked a lot about that in the first video in this series. But not only is the idea that managing money isn't worth it unless you earn a lot of money not true, it prevents a lot of us from building secure financial footholds for ourselves, like building an emergency fund. And it prevents us from pursuing more financial education or more financial literacy because we think that's not for me. Now, I'm going to share my tax returns with you for a second here because we're all friends in the TFD community, and I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of having a low income history. I started tracking my spending and budgeting in 2014, a year where I made $16,360. Now, the next year, 2015, I kept up those financial habits and I made $22,916. So the idea that you have to have a lot of money in order to manage money, it's just not true, and I can speak to the realities of that having gone through it. A study by TIAA Institute finds that lower perceived financial security, which often correlates with lower income or limited savings, is strongly linked to higher stress. And once again, I can speak to that lived experience. I have never been more mentally unwell than when my income was at its lowest. This is an incredibly hostile country to people who do not have any money, and it's very difficult to access your base necessities, let alone things like mental health care, when you don't make very much money. So if you're currently in financial survival mode, it can feel almost flippant to think about things like managing your money. But as we've discussed, having a sense of control, or at the very least an understanding of your finances, can have very tangible benefits for your mental health. It can help you stop some of these cycles of avoidance and embarrassment. And while you may not be able to solve a financial problem immediately, you at least understand the problem and can begin to piece together, if I do X, that will result in Y, and that means I can change Z. Now, admittedly, I'm a budgeting nerd. I love it. I started budgeting in 2014. I am still budgeting today. I personally use a spreadsheet as well as a financial dashboard, but the great thing about personal finance is it's personal, so you need to find the money routine that works for you. And as you think about that, I want you to consider these three things. Firstly, what motivates you? You need a strong sense of your personal why in order to motivate you and kind of get the ball rolling. For me, way back in the day, it was, I feel anxious and depressed around my student loan debt, and I don't want to feel that way anymore. So let me pay off my student loan debt so I can eliminate this problem from my life. That was my why. That was my motivating factor. Now, when I was paying off my student loan debt, I lived with 3 friends from college who did not have any student loan debt. And I could literally see on a day-to-day basis the differences in our lives. They were not stressed about how to make a student loan payment. They were able to take more flexible career options because they didn't have the threat of debt hanging over their head. And my friends were essentially my IRL visualization. I could literally see every day what life without debt looked like, and that helped motivate me towards wanting to pay off my debt. But you need to understand what works for you when fleshing out your motivation. Are you a visual person? Would a vision board or a mood board work for you? Do you need an accountability buddy, someone that you can check in regularly and talk through the challenges and the wins of your goals? Are you analog and old school and do you want to write things down? Or are you full-blown tech girly and you want to use an app or some sort of online system to stay on track? Knowing what works for your brain is going to help you build out systems and roads to help you get where you want to go. And on the flip side of this, we also have to know what our personal pitfalls are. What are things that you struggle with? Are you prone towards impulse shopping? Do you struggle to think long term? Understanding what some of the challenges are going to be for you will allow you to put guardrails in place so that when you come up against something that you struggle with, it doesn't completely derail your progress. Me personally, I have an ADHD brain. It is very easy to spend money that I didn't mean to spend. And so I, for example, do not ever save my credit card information on the internet. I always have to manually enter my credit card information. And I keep my credit card in my wallet, and I keep my wallet in my foyer. It's not really a foyer, it's really more just of like a hall closet, but I keep it there. And that means if I am on the internet in my office where I'm filming, I have to get up, leave the room, go get my purse, get my wallet, and come all the way back here before I can buy that item. That alone often stops me. It slows me down just enough for me to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do I even really want this thing? How is this going to contribute to my life? And more importantly, in my tiny home, where am I going to keep this thing? Putting guardrails into your financial plan and your financial organization is going to help you reach financial goals faster, but it's also going to help you avoid these feelings of shame or embarrassment. So here are some ideas just to get the ball rolling for you. You can automate savings and investments so that you don't have to worry about manually doing that. You can delete your credit card information off the internet, like me. You can commit to a 3-day waiting period before you buy anything. You can unsubscribe from any marketing emails. You can have proactive conversations with the people in your life that you tend to spend more with or tend to spend in a way that you don't feel good about afterwards about how you'd like to change your interactions. And you can keep visual reminders around your house and around your life of what you're actually working towards that will help you stay on track. I think a lot of people have a mindset towards money that we are these kind of like full fleshed out people, and then money is something that sort of happens to us once a month when we have to pay the bills. But actually, the more you understand yourself, the better you'll be at managing money. For example, if you know that you're someone who, if they have money in the checking account, they're going to spend that money. That means you're a great candidate for financial automation, where you have the robots take the money out of your checking account and send it to a separate savings account, perhaps at a completely different bank, so it's harder for you to spend your personal emergency fund on tickets to see your favorite artist. Now, also think about how hands-on do you want to be? A lot of us don't enjoy money management. I mean, I do. I love checking my budget every single day. It makes me feel in control. It makes me feel calm, but I understand not everyone is me. And especially if you are a busy person, if you're raising kids, if you're working multiple jobs, you may not have the most time in the world to devote to a really in-depth money routine. It's like, I'm not a makeup girly day to day, so sometimes when I see those TikToks of people who are like, here's my 12-step skincare routine, I'm like, where do you find the time? I mean, I just simply could never. It could never be me. And if that's how you feel about a really in-depth money routine, that's okay. We just need to find something that works for your time. And luckily, we're living in the digital age, so you can easily let the robots do the work. You can automate your savings, you can automate your investments, and you can also build out an organizational system for your financial life. For example, your long-term savings accounts are going to be things like your emergency fund, any pet emergency fund that you have, or saving for a goal that is 5+ years away, like maybe saving for a house. But you can also have things called slush funds, which are savings accounts that are designed to be spent in the short term. So that might be, okay, I'm going to start saving in January 2026 for a trip that I want to take in November 2026. You would keep those savings in a slush fund because you're going to spend that money within the next 12 months. I'm always a little embarrassed to share this with the internet, but hey, it works for my brain and it might work for yours. I personally have 11 savings accounts because I need to understand the difference between my house emergency fund, my job loss emergency fund, and my travel fund. If I were to keep all of this money in one big pot, it would be very easy for me to spend money on travel that was supposed to go towards fixing the water heater. Maybe you're also an 11 savings account person. Maybe you're not. We are living in the digital age, and there are a ton of apps that you can use to both manage your budget as well as manage your investing. This series is sponsored by Betterment. I know that many people have found a lot of success using Betterment as a robo-advisor that helps them automate and grow their investments. Another amazing benefit to budgeting for me as someone who is naturally pretty messy, including with my finances, is that I am way, way more on top of my monthly bills than I ever was before. And I have found that to be especially helpful as a new homeowner. Not to de-influence you for buying a house, but it's not just the down payment and then the monthly mortgage. Houses need things, including repairs, but also items. When I first moved in, I had to buy a new microwave, I had to buy a lawnmower, I had to buy a weed whacker. There was a bunch of things I had to buy. And I now also have recurring monthly costs that I did not have as a renter. For example, I have to pay my utility bill for the water and sewage, I have to pay my property taxes, and I have to pay my home insurance. Having my budget and having a money management system that is really down pat and I feel really confident about makes paying these increased and now more frequent costs so much easier. I've been in this personal finance education game for nearly 8 years, and I think part of what keeps me feeling so passionate about this is how much getting control over your personal finances really can improve your life, and how you can really curate your own relationship to money. If you want to be incredibly hands-on and check in on your money day to day, there's an app for that. If you want to be really hands-off, there's an app for that. You can relate to your money in whatever way you want to relate to your money. But no matter which tools you end up using, and no matter how you end up kind of defining your financial life, it is so important for all of us to understand how money moves in our life, from how we earn it, to how we save it, to how we spend it. Money really is power, freedom, and flexibility. And having a deep understanding of not only what your financial goals are, but what money means to you and how you want to manage your money is going to give you the ultimate in that power, flexibility, and freedom. I think a lot of people who are less than excited about managing their money tend to think of themselves as kind of existing separately outside of their money, and then money is something that they sort of have to deal with maybe once a month or when the bill comes. But actually, the better you understand yourself, the better you're going to be at managing your money. Now our 3-part series has come to an end, and let me just say I am so grateful to the team at TFD for bringing me in on this very important and very fun project, and I'm so grateful to all y'all for watching. And please sound off in the comments and tell us what's working for you in your money life.